Minutes, Resolution 23-178 to accept the minutes of August 16th, 2023.
So moved.
So moved. Second. Discussion. All in favor? Resolution 23-179 to accept the minutes of the special meeting of August 30th, 2023. So moved. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? 3 and 1 abstain.
I was not present.
That's right. Public hearing, there are no public hearings. Public comment, to allow members of the public to comment or reserve time to speak on an upcoming agenda item. Is there any public comments at the moment? Seeing none. Workshop. Discuss application process for community benefit program matching grants.
So in your packets, you should have a application that looks like this, and if Commissioner Johnson were here, he would recognize this because it's essentially a template that we used in the town of Madison for a $5,000 matching grant program, which we funded from our TIF dollars. But essentially what this proposes is taking your community development funds and allocating some of them for a matching grant program. We're not talking about the UT TIF funds, those are separate. This is just the matching grant, or rather just the community benefit funds, which generate about $350,000 per year over the next 10 years. I suggested a cap of 15,000. That's certainly open for discussion. And I formatted this as a matching grant. In other words, if there was a project that an entity in Somerset County wanted to do, and it was going to cost them $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, you know, this would be a matching grant towards their money, and this just wouldn't be a straight $15,000 gift of money. It would be, in other words, a way of stretching their dollars. If you read through this, you'll see that it's pretty business-centric. Of course, we could alter that language to also include nonprofits and other basic public services. So just to refresh my memory, since I've been here for 60 days, we've received inquiries from the gym up in Bingham. The Forks area club is considering buying a groomer. We had a presentation from the St. Albans Fire Department at the last meeting, and I have heard from the East Madison Historical Society as they're looking to do projects. And so this is all coming without any promotion of this type of project. If it were to be promoted, I would imagine you would probably have a number of people interested. And finally, I am recommending it to be done on a open and closed time period. In other words, applications would be open from early October through November, or whatever times you decide. Then, once your applications are in, they go to the TIF committee, which is already existing, and Christian can call a meeting of the TIF committee. They can review using a simple matrix, simple scoring system, and then make a recommendation to the commissioners for final. So I lay that out there for any thoughts or comments and workshop, and see if you're interested in pursuing such a thing.
Yes, John.
Well, I like it, but would this preclude a situation where somebody needed something under $15,000 for a particularly valuable and important project, and they just didn't have any other money, and they were just desperate to? They couldn't do a full match, maybe a partial or no match at all. Is that something that the TIF committee would say, well, we do make exceptions for particular worthy projects, or is, it's sort of case by case, I guess.
You're the commissioners, it's your program. So you can decide whether or not to put that language in. I would just, I'd rather that be the exception than the norm.
Right, yeah.
And certainly you can allocate your funds in such a way that maybe you put $80,000 toward nonprofits or so forth to do so many grants, but you hold back $20,000 or $30,000 in a case like that.
Yeah, special
So,
emergency.
and any type of TIF budget is very flexible, because it really comes down to you, to how to allocate those funds. So the purposes of the TIF, the UT TIF, that's all spelled out in the TIF language. The community benefit funds are very flexible and very
Right,
wide.
I think this is a very good step in the right direction, so I would support this. I had, as you know, I was on I forget the name of it, it's the
Western Mountains
Western Mountains,
Community Development Foundation.
yeah, they had tons of money, and we were on a committee, and we met on a regular basis to review applications for money, and we had $70,000 was our budget every year to give away.
Yeah.
And there was a $10,000 maximum,
Yeah.
and there was no matching element to it. And we had our sort of rubrics and standards that we would apply. We had quite a lot of procedure and review to pass out sometimes pretty small amounts of money, but it was worthy, it was good. I think we should do that, all in favor. What would the next step be on this to get it rolling?
If you're okay with it as it is presented, you could certainly make it effective. And if you wanted to utilize the dates that were available for applications, people to apply, then we could start promoting that.
And is this twice a year deadlines?
It certainly could be, but right now, it's just established October, November, but if you want to do a springtime one as well.
I mean, I'm sure once is enough.
Joel? Go ahead.
I just want to make sure, that's all. I have two things. This talks about private business in nonprofits. Is there, and of course it's called community benefit, is there a reason why communities or towns aren't or can't be included? Let's say a town wants to do, well, I'll just pick a food cupboard, right? They want to start a food cupboard, but they need a place, they need a piece of property, they need whatever it is. Is there some other program out there that does that this would need to, that I'm not aware of?
May I answer that for you? Municipalities are nonprofits, so they would fall under that criteria.
Yeah.
Okay, so they would be considered a nonprofit in this situation?
Certainly, and if you have something like we just heard last time from St. Albans Fire Department, that's an example where if there's a project and the municipality says, we're willing to put up X amount of dollars, the county could use this program.
Okay, just the way I read it, it didn't sound like that was the case.
Yeah,
Like the St. Albans folks would have to start their own nonprofit emergency service or something like that, okay. Okay, so
And we could add
takes
that
care
into
of
the language, is that nonprofit, including but not limited to municipalities, hospitals.
Well, that might not be a bad idea, because I do know some folks that would probably not read that into that. The other piece was actually, John brought it up, the timeline. So especially for businesses, having maybe a twice a year or biannual type situation, you never know when an opportunity arises that you could expand. You can't always plan a year ahead, and it would be too bad that, some worthy projects didn't come up until, 30 days after the deadline. Other than that,
Go ahead.
I think there should be some bylaws, or whatever you want to call them, relating to the process and procedure that the committee uses in terms of who's going to be on it, how many people, how they're going to rotate on and off. Because I know because of COVID and other reasons that, as far as I can tell, nobody knows who's on the committee unless you're on the committee. We need to have a more public, open, transparent, regular type meeting, so we have, and I know this is true, the way they do it in Skowhegan and other organizations, we need to have more of a structure to our committee, the TIF committee.
I can look back and see what the original structure, the wording was, and I talked with Christian about this. And there have been appointments already made this year to the TIF committee, so we could certainly,
Who makes the appointments?
commissioners. So
We did that?
you appointed the two
Our own people.
unorganized territories.
But who, I mean, it's just in terms of regional distribution
Right.
and terms and on the
Right.
committee. And,
Right.
I think that needs to be looked at in some kind of structure. So.
It may exist, and we just haven't seen it yet. So
Right.
yes, yeah.
Yep.
Good point.
A lot of moving parts.
Scott?
I do think that we probably ought to have it on there a couple of times a year,
Yeah.
spring and fall, just to cover, I mean, like Joel said, if something comes up here.
And I think it's good that we have it more than once anyway, because of the way that the fiscal year jumps the calendar.
Yep.
So,
And not to over-egg the omelet here, but you might, I'm just sort of wondering whether the TIF commit, I mean, should there be, this is countywide as opposed to TIF funds, which are just UT, so
Right.
are we talking two different committees, or should, if we had, for example, on the TIF committee, people from Skowhegan and Narwhal or Fairfield or Southern County, are they being asked to make decisions about TIF funding in the UT? Or should we have a sort of standalone community benefit committee or subcommittee that just deals with the community benefit funds as opposed to UT funds? I'm just throwing that out there, because,
David, can you answer that?
What we did before was a TIF committee. We had several people that were either living in the UT or were doing business nearby. We had Susan Hoffmeyer from Northern Outdoors, and much of the activities that her organization does took place in the UTs. Dave Miller lives in Lexington, very familiar with the UTs. Then we had a couple folks that were not in UTs, but folks with Bingham, Moscow representatives. And of course, we had a commissioner from the UT, another commissioner. So it was represented. Community benefit funds, I always thought, did not need to go through the committee. The commissioner we had at the time wanted it. He liked the visibility, keep everything out in the open and clear. So we did discuss a lot. But community benefit funds are strictly the jurisdiction of the commissioners. You have to say where that goes. TIF funds, more restricted. So we had input on those. I can't remember much that was ever turned down. There were a couple that were questionable that did go through and went up to the commissioners to make a decision on. But yeah, I don't think we need two committees. If you want to keep the TIF committee involved with community benefit, you certainly can. That's the way it was before. All the money being spent, even if the TIF committee votes 100% for something, we love it, it's up to the commissioner to decide yes or no. That's what I've always looked at it.
We have told, we spent community benefit money in UT, so we're mixed match.
Yes.
Yeah, we have.
but aren't we talking about a situation where on a biannual basis or semi-annual basis, we're going to be distributing money to various worthy causes according to this theory? And we were talking about a committee, and I don't think, with all due respect to Susie Hockmeyer, we want to have somebody, a committee that's exclusively north of Bingham, deciding on whether or not there should be a drug treatment rehab program in Fairfield. I mean, it seems to me we need regional, if we're going to have a committee with the authority to make recommendations to us on how money should be spent for community benefit money, it ought to be representative of the county, and just, that makes sense to me.
Based on what Dave just expressed there, I'm thinking, is there a need for a separate committee? If it's coming to the commissioners and the commissioners represent the entire county, would you want the added duty of reviewing 6, 7, 8, 10 applications, scoring them, and then, in a public meeting, making the decision of who gets what money? Is that something you'd like to do as a commission?
Well, give you my personal opinion, and that is, I think we should have a committee do that with a system in place to score them and make recommendations to us. And as from my experience, sitting on a committee that's doled out $70,000 a year, I don't think it's too much to ask that we have a committee to dole out $400,000 a year, which is really what we're talking about, at least for the next few years, so.
Okay, David?
The original intent, even though it's probably not written down, was that the community benefit had to indirectly benefit the UTs. Because as Christian mentioned, we often split funds. West Forks Fire needed a new rescue vehicle. So we did a 50-50 split with them, but we funded partially with community benefit money because they're inside the town, the plantation, but they respond to UTs. So we could use TIF funds from the UTs and community benefit funds for the fact that they're in a plantation. So we did that with a couple of different programs, but on rare occasions, stretching the benefit to the UTs to the limit, we did spend money in Fairfield. We spent money here in town at Run the River. So some of the community benefit funds were not directly benefiting the UTs, but people made the argument that they were.
Well, not directly, but indirectly, and that was the key.
Yeah.
I didn't see that in the statute, maybe I misread it, where it says the community benefit funds, which to me, if I took a cynical approach, would suggest it's almost sort of a way of encouraging communities to, sign up for TIFs where they otherwise might not want to. I wouldn't call it a bribe, but it's an incentive. And it seems to me the way it's written, it's not tied to the UT at all, unlike the TIF funds. It's just not.
As I said, it may not be written down, but that wasn't understood at the beginning. But certainly new commissioners can reinterpret and move the direction they choose to move.
Okay, well.
So would you like me to work up some edits and bring it back?
That'd be helpful.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. I think we're on the right direction here.
We're in the right direction, we like this. If there is any applications out there, and you do want to get the existing TIF committee involved in any new applications that have come before us,
I haven't had an official one yet.
okay. Yeah, there have been no official ones, yeah. Joel?
Just one last thing for me, and I'm not sure how it gets done, maybe it's the scoring process that takes care of that or whatever, is some sort of mechanism, or, I look at it almost as protection, of others looking at us as a board of improperly or inappropriately handing out money due to favoritism or those sorts of things. That's a red line for me. So if there's some sort of process or procedure that can happen in the works to help with that, that way there's, well, because you're going to get that, right? Well, you gave it to them, and you're not giving it to me because you don't like me, because my brothers, sisters, whatever, If we can-
That's the committee. The committee will submit what they feel should be valid. So you're not really selecting the projects that you will go with. Committee reviews.
We're not selecting the particular projects, but at the same time, it was just said that if the committee says 100%, yeah, we're behind this, the commission still has the ability to say, no, it's not happening, or vice versa. I don't know if there's a solution to that, but I'd like to, if there was one, I'd like to find it.
What you want is something documented that says, a separate committee looked at this, they scored it this way, and made this recommendation. And then, where that decision goes after that is on the 5 commissioners.
And I think assuming that we think that it's a solid committee doing its job, that our approval would not be unreasonably withheld.
Right.
I mean, they're mindful of the budget, how much money they have to spend, and the criteria to score. We we're not a rubber stamp, but I don't think we're supposed to all of a sudden redo their work for them
Right.
and tell them we're right and they're wrong. I don't want to go there.
No, I'm just looking for some checks and balances,
Yeah,
that's all.
I agree with you.
Well, that's the process of the committee. They vet the project and bring it to us, and then we give it the final okay or nay. The final say.
So in this particular situation, then I guess I've got to look at them again, the metrics for and I read through it, you sent me the email, I read through all that, I've got to look at it again as far as, are those metrics, do we need to look at those and adjust them one way or the other?
Yep.
To make sure it does fit into the criteria that this board feels to address, I guess.
I can rework that.
Chris?
Yeah, I think these initial first steps are, obviously some progress that kind of wipe away that, viewpoint, maybe any favoritism. Saying, look, we have this, agenda we follow, the scoring rubric, we look at it objectively, and I think that'll sort itself out. There is some funds, as you know, that's pulled from the UT TIF, really for expenses and some type of capital projects and stuff too. So if we split it into two committees, that existing TIF committee may have much less of a say and much smaller dollars, depending on whatever comes up or whatever the budgets look like down the road, I guess I'm kind of split on a community benefit committee, just because I'm on 22 committees, but but I'm open to helping whoever I can, and I can talk, and I'll defer to Dave. Dave does all the work.
Well, in
bring an application.
In that situation, if it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but if it makes sense, if we feel there's different metrics that ought to be looked at, the same committee can just
Right.
look at the different metrics and do the same work.
Tim, you'll do some tweaks for us and
Yeah,
get back to us.
yeah, you'll see it
We'll
again.
just keep this on the workshop agenda. Next on the workshop is discuss updates to purchasing policy.
All right, so you've seen different iterations of the purchasing policy. I will say this has been a good process to review with all the department heads, and those in the individual departments that actually handle a lot of the coding of invoices and purchases and so forth. So there's been good feedback on this. So basically what we've created here is a beefed-up version of the original purchasing policy that was passed in December of last year. And we've included some language, some definitions, some language about adhering to budget, and then some language on processes. And in my conversations with all the department heads and all their folks, the most important thing that came across was to reaffirm that everybody's already doing good work in this process. We don't have people that are off there just grabbing numbers out of the sky. And so as I listened to different department heads, I determined, okay, that the sheriff assigned this project to one of the deputies to do the research on this thing they wanted to purchase. And in the jail, certain people had responsibilities to research this. And I said, you're already doing 90% of this. All we really need is documentation of the research that you did. And so we worked out a process so that when a purchase is being made, the vetting process of going and getting quotes, even if it's as simple as getting quotes from the internet, to show that we kind of vetted and this is how we came to this conclusion. Print that documentation out, put it with the invoice, and it's when the treasurer does the warrant, she has that extra documentation, just in case a federal agent ever comes in and says, you used federal money for this, show me your documentation, we can have that documentation on file. That was probably the biggest part of this. Once you get to purchases over $10,000, if they're not single source purchases, if they're not typical utility purchases like we pay $20,000 a month in power to CMP for the jail. I mean, if it's not those types of things, then it goes out to an RFP. We've got a very simple RFP process here. The department head works with me to put the RFP together. It's posted on the website, and we go through it just like you have in the past, where those RFPs come in and they're opened in the commissioners' meeting. So I think we've worked through about 90%, maybe even 95% of some of the issues. And since a certain finance director kept asking me questions, we created a final page called Frequently Asked Questions. I just left off the frequently asked questions from Patrick. So, but I thought they were helpful
Oh, that was good.
in that,
Yeah.
in that, so.
And I have a concern about number 5B and C. You've got purchases of goods and services to $10,000, and then you have purchases of goods and services in excess of $10,001. It should really be $10,000.
Yep, I got your email on that, so
And I had something else in that email, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my mind, but,
you had asked about unusual purchases, item E on the bottom of page 3.
Oh, yes.
And you wanted to include both the language that we work with the department head to document the nature of the purchase, and then a recommendation is brought to the commissioners.
right,
So
yeah,
we-
and you did
it's
change
kind
that.
of both and, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that the one is still in here, but you've done,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, good. Good.
So any thoughts on moving forward with that? I did take the liberty of putting it on the agenda as a resolution if you wanted to pass it today, but that might have been presumptuous on my part in case there's any red flags.
No, it was a good thing,
With your edits?
with my edits, yeah. And I think you'll find the edit in E is okay. It's just that they didn't do it on C. It's changing that to a 0.
I can take care of that.
But those are just, that's a housekeeping more than it is any big major philosophical.
Good.
Okay, so we can do that and as Joel says, with the edits. And so, all set with purchasing? So we'll move along to new agenda items, commissioners only.
Motion to authorize hiring of the domestic violence investigator in the DA's office.
Okay, so that's a motion to add to the agenda. That would be, if we have a second on that,
We'll put it all the way at the end.
we'll put it all the way to the end. Do you have a resolution number for it?
It would be 191.
Okay. And who seconded that?
I did.
Thank you. Any discussion on that new resolution? All in favor? Okay, let's go. So we have that there. Finance reporting.
The audits came a couple weeks ago. Currently, there's still no findings, so the numbers I gave you last time still hold true. At the end of August, I took a snapshot to see how we're doing this year. And all the departments are running within plan. We actually we're building a surplus in the sense that we currently have 21 open positions throughout the county. General and SO and EDs and so on. So, and comm center is down to 2 employees. So we're showing labor savings, unfortunately, because we have open positions.
Right. Yeah, okay. Anything else? Any questions?
I just want to make sure I understood it. On the fund balance is the last 4015-11, which is the sublocated account. That's a pretty big number there. That's drawn from that's part of the opioid? How do we get to that number, I guess is my question, just so I understand it.
That number is
307,000?
right. That's what we pay for supplicating. We submit, we pay and then we submit to the state for reimbursement.
Okay.
So that's the amount that the state needs to reimburse us open.
But aren't we also accessing our opioid funds to make up
We
the?
access 50% $15,000 for that. And we're gonna be looking for roughly another $29,000 to close out FY 2023.
The program's really taken off. The state has partnered with us, and Pat is correct. We pay for it and they reimburse us. And it looks like for the fiscal years done, because these shots are about $1,600 a piece. The state's going to reimburse the county about $1 million for that project.
Is this new, good news? I mean, when we were first talking about this 6 months ago, I thought we were...
No, it's outstanding news. We've been working with, a team of us, have been working with Gordon Smith and Director Squirrel, Sarah Squirrel. They've been very receptive to the program. We've actually had a couple meetings in Augusta with them, and they're committed to doing this because of the success rate. So that when you leave the jail versus the Suboxone, which is a daily, the Sublocade is a 28 days. So when you leave the jail, you have treatment on board. It helps to reduce recidivism.
Does this number include the administration of, I mean, I know people up there that are running the program that we...
That isn't part of that number currently because they actually gave a different grant to launch it to the administrator. When it comes to FY 2024, we received roughly $600,000 to start this year for the first half of the year, and the administrative cost is not included in that.
No.
So,
Okay, well, I asked a question, I learned something. That's great. This is good
looks like the
news.
state will be giving the jail roughly $1.2 million this year for that program.
Okay, thank you.
And don't confuse that number with the revenue of the state's part of their distribution of the county jails for the program.
Yeah, just for Sublocade.
That's for some cases.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
That's good news, thank you. Anything else on finance reporting? You said that the audits came in?
Audits came in, but they're doing the work remotely now, but no issues have come up since. I don't see any, so I think the numbers are pretty firm.
So we'll get copies of the audits?
Yeah, once they come in, I asked them to have it completed by the end of September, but we'll see. Because we need, the bond requirements require us to file at the end of September with that language.
Okay. So we can look forward to seeing that in October then. Great,
And if
good.
you'd like, I can always schedule a workshop or a meeting if you want to go through that, and I can explain some of the details of the audit if you'd like.
Yeah, we probably would like that at some point. Thank you. That's great. Administrator report.
So I put some bullet points in your packets there. I'll just touch on a couple of them. The prep work for the boiler is moving along. Their biggest challenge to date was to install a 70-foot liner from the top of the chimney all the way down to the boiler, and that was successfully completed this past week. So they're making good progress on that. I've done some work just reviewing personnel policies and trying to start a context to properly look at the charter. And so you should be seeing that in probably not, maybe next meeting, but at least the first meeting in October. So I don't know if the board had any questions.
That's it? Okay. Department heads, let's start with Sheriff.
Patrol had 493 calls for service last week. We were extremely busy. Unfortunately, we had a resignation from Deputy Logan Roberts, who had decided to go to state police. We concluded him hard. We were successful.
That's it? Nothing in regards to the jails?
I mean, we're still down eight positions. Major Slope is still out. Captain Pike has done a great job stepping up to the plate and working at the day-to-day operations and numbers. There's a lot going on with this MCCA and the reference to jail funding for the distribution from the state and the supplement that's attached to that.
Any questions for the sheriff? I'm sorry, in the back?
Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
So we just finished 2 days, the DA's office just finished 2 days of docket call. We are picking juries tomorrow. We are picking 7 juries. We're going to have 7 jury calls through the end of the month. So we're coming in tomorrow. Parking's going to be horrendous because all the jurors will be here. And we're very excited that you guys are going to let us get a new GP investigator. We need one.
Do we tell them that there's a capping?
We do. The court sends out the instructions, and it tells them to park in the municipal parking, and it tells them to park in the district court. However, we're not forced them to read the instructions. Tell them that.
All right, thank you. Anything further, any questions for Natalie? Mike Smith?
I'm happy to report that about 98% of the Kennebec County calls have been redirected at this point. Still getting a few VoIP calls that are coming in, a couple of towers that are still, for some reason, bouncing to us, but they're working on that. We did 2,449 911 calls last month, which is 89% wireless. We're down to 11% landline calls, so it shouldn't make a difference, but it does, because every wireless call is not a complete call, so it requires a lot of chasing, so they're a lot more time consuming than what a standard landline call is. So, 7,516 calls for service last month across the entire county. We're still progressing, working on Central Square, getting that ready. We had a meeting yesterday. We're looking at a tentatively go-live date of August 6th for next year, so 3 days before the fair starts, which should be interesting. We're still waiting on Homeland Security notification for this year as far as the grant process. We know that 3 projects were submitted in the state's plan. I actually heard from the Deputy Director of NEMA today, and they're still waiting. They figured they would have it by the end of the month. However, here we are in the new month, and we don't have it. We have 2 openings on the communication side, as Patrick said. I know at the last meeting from the minutes, Commissioner Johnson asked a question about the PPE building. That PPE inventory has been started to be built. It's been built with 1 year's worth of Homeland Security money. The FY20 money, which should have expired on August 31st, got a 12-month extension to it because of all of the issues with the supply chain through COVID. They put an extra 12 months to spend the money. We were able to take the $17,000 that was left in that and get a modification done on it to first start purchasing sheltering supplies, cots and blankets. That had been part of this year's application. It did not get included in the state's application up to the feds. So we're going to take that money and we're going to get the project done anyway, just using 2020 money as opposed to 2023 money. And the last thing I have is the May Day storm. The DR 719 has started process in the county. I know Dave's already had a phone call, and he's got a meeting next week at the EOC with some representatives from FEMA, and the towns have already started being notified to start their process. So.
I have a question on the Central Square. How is that affecting the other towns that are involved? Is it?
Well, the discussion that we had yesterday was 72% complete at this point as far as being where we need to be. So that's including everybody.
Okay.
So everybody's pulling their weight, even though we're not necessarily doing it in one big silo, we're doing it individually. So.
Yeah, right, they're all connected. These are silos with conduits to each other, so. All right, John.
Well, the staffing shortage on communications,
Yes.
is that new? Is that, we've had that for a while?
We've had it. Even, call space paid, even with the pay raise that was given the 1st of July, we just had an employee who was with us about a month and ended up getting hired at Waterville for $3 an hour more than we were paying. So, we're still behind in that respect.
Do we have a bank of suitable applicants beating down our doors?
We do not. Actually, I can tell you that while I was sitting here, an applicant came in, and I will guarantee you that Tammy has been on the phone with them already to set up an observation time, because when they come in, we make contact. We had 2 come in last week. One did not show up for their observation that was scheduled. And the second one did show up for their observation, and it was less than successful. So, yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is, John. But you know, in this day and age, when 18 miles away is $3 an hour more, they're gonna be gone. You know, so those are kind of the things that we're battling right now.
Any other questions?
Is this a call to action? I mean, should we, is something we should be doing, raising it?
I'm not sure what we can do, to be honest with you, at this point. We're digging everywhere. I mean, Leanne's got us out everywhere looking for applicants. But even at $20.38 an hour to start, you can do better work now, so. And not answer 911 calls and not have to work nights and weekends and,
McDonald's is hiring for that right now.
Okay.
You know, and we're not in an area where we can, where we're drawing a lot from other agencies. You know what I mean? It's not like we're in Cumberland County where there's 6 PSAPs and they're all within 25 miles of each other.
Yeah.
You know, our closest would be either Franklin or Augusta at this point, and that's not happening.
It's kind of sad because we're also providing paid holidays and insurance and health insurance.
Unfortunately, Commissioner, that's not important to people who are applying for jobs today.
And we can't eliminate those and add that to their pay. Which is,
Did I hear right?
it's a catch-22 that we're stuck in.
Yeah. Health insurance is not an inducement?
Most people under the age of 26 are still on their parents' insurance anyway.
Yeah, those days are gone for me.
So, I mean,
And living in the basement.
Just barely.
you know, and in all honesty, at that age, I'm not sure what it is, but there is no inclination to be worried about retirement. So therefore, if across the road pays 25 cents more and I don't have health insurance for retirement, I'm going there because it's what's in my paycheck at the end of the month.
Now, I shouldn't be taking a lot of time, but I'm curious. So when you hire someone, is a younger person just out of, I don't know what kind of educational credentials you need for the job? Is
High
that?
school diploma. You know, honestly, one of the hardest things right now is background check.
Yeah. But you can't go to Somerset Vocational and do a job fair out there. I mean, you
We
can't,
tried job fairs, they have not produced anything for us.
just it strikes me as unusual that somebody wouldn't want to be interested in trying that out.
It's across all occupations.
Yeah.
Everybody's dealing with it. It's awful.
Yeah.
Where everybody went, I'm not sure. They just disappeared. During COVID, they just vanished.
They'll be back.
I keep saying that, but they're not.
Yeah. It's like,
Commissioner, when that day comes, let me know.
everybody's in line.
Yeah, they'll be back. Okay. Well, thank you for your efforts.
Anything further for us?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pavel?
So, still working on this fiber project. So I'm working with a consolidated engineer, we're waiting on the contract to sign. So there's like some work that still needs to be done. So we're ready to sign. Wireless access points, that project is almost completed. We have a few access points left and the cable will be installed. But like courthouse, communication center and most of the jail, we have a new access points already installed and ready to be used. And working on the cybersecurity daily, so we split this task. So between me, Jonathan, and Brad, we kind of divided this, and we working on this stuff daily. Basically. So between 3 of us.
Okay. So, on my computer, Safari doesn't pick up the website, but Mozilla does. And I was wondering why the problem before I go and empty my cache and then have to put in all my passwords again.
Yeah, we'll take a look. I'll definitely take a look.
All right, yeah. And I didn't know if you'd heard that from other people, if it's just unique to my,
No.
okay.
Google Chrome might just do the fix. I was a Firefox guy for a while.
No, I like Google Chrome too, and I don't like Firefox that much, but I'm just a Safari guy. And I just didn't know how many other Safari people that was affected by.
Yeah, we're not really like
Yeah.
using Safari here. Mostly like it's Google.
Well, I've been out in the public.
And the public.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about. Here, wasn't so worried, but in the public, I was concerned. And I do like to have 2 or 3 different browsers,
Yeah.
so, for that. Any other questions?
These big numbers on the fund balances are always jumping off the page at me, so. The $873,000, is that for county dark fiber infrastructure? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
And that's what it's costing us? Or how's that work?
If you recall, you were so excited to pass a motion last meeting because he offered an alternative that
All right, okay,
was
so-
much less. So we're not spending that yet, so.
We're just going to spend it in much smaller amounts.
Correct.
Yes.
So I should just put a black line through this fund balance, or is this, how's this work?
Maybe a red line.
This will be
Just
a
put a red line.
discussion during budget.
Okay. So this is money we have,
You've allocated.
we've allocated it. Is it in the bank somewhere, or is it just,
Out of the cash balance, I would assume.
okay. But we're not going to spend it because of this thing we decided to do.
It's allocated,
Not all of
it's dedicated
Yeah. Okay.
to a project,
Like I said, I'm
so
terrible.
you can't spend it.
I just go to the big numbers here, so.
I know, you like to see all these big numbers, and you want to spend it.
No, I don't. Last thing I want to
If
do.
I could just go back to the chair's concern about the website, we are a couple weeks into website development, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew that they were working on that still, but I just wanted to make sure that they took a closer look at the Safari end of things. I'm not the only person out in the public that has Apple computers and software. Any question?
No.
Moving along.
Okay.
I think that we've heard from all the department heads.
You got these two fine-looking gentlemen right here.
These two fine-looking gentlemen, David. Hi.
He signed it, yes.
There's no coffee.
That's right, I didn't drink coffee, so I'm kind of,
I can go real quick. We are entering budget year number 2 for our digital skills grant with the state.
Oh, yeah.
Going into libraries, schools, ranges, veterans halls, training, and learn how to use the internet properly. We purchased a mobile unit, so our trainer can go to any location. There's 10 laptops and tablets, and we're really leading the state in that program, so it looks like year 2 is coming up. And I'm not trying to spend the money before year end, but I was pretty frugal, the first few months, so we'll see what the year 2 budget looks like. We were awarded a $100,000 workforce grant from the state. Now we need to find another $100,000 because it's matching funds, so we'll be hitting the streets pretty hard on that. We're going to focus on, I'm going outside of some other parameters on that, but I got it okay to really look at reentry back into the workforce, as you're mentioning. Where do these employees go? What's it going to take for them to start working again? The state pushed back, and I said, that's probably one of the bigger things we're concerned about. We have open positions everywhere. A recruitment effort will go into that. We'll be trying to recruit people to come live and work in Somerset County too. So, Timber HP, formerly Go Labs, is up and running with their first product line now. The Louisville installation. Tim can probably speak better to that, but so I appreciate the county support on that. That was a big ask, and a lot of money coming into the area. Tim and I sat down last week discussing county loans that we're administering. I'll have those, I had a couple of questions for my assistant, and I'll follow up with him on that after. We also looked at, and this was probably the one reservation I have with capping maybe the TIF community looking at state and federal programs or grants to leverage county dollars. So typically, we know we spend 100, 200, 300,000 some years, so it's a 2-year period on trail clubs, trail maintenance, groomers. If we're okay with spending that, you know, for the long term, can we turn our 200,000 into $1 million? You know, I've been looking at a CDS project for the earmark bills through Congress. I think this is a really good fit. Senator Holmes' lady just left. But if we look at, you know, we can get up to $2 million in that. If the county said, look, this is what we've supported in that local recreational economy for years, this is what we'll continue to support. We have 4, 5, 6 trail clubs. They're doing ATVs. I think it'd be a pretty strong contribution. So anyway, we're just throwing stuff against the wall. We're seeing how we can maximize our county dollars. And then I have had discussions with one legal firm on representing the county for the CP corridor. I wanted to bring, I haven't looked at the purchase policy. I'm assuming you're going to want 2 or 3 proposals to look at. And so I don't know if you want me to just keep reaching out to firms that I know can do a good job, kick it over to Tim, kick it over to the commission. I'm willing to do whatever makes it easier for everyone. The one firm I reached out to, I know well, and they'll do a good job. The state gives a list of 8 to 10 firms that they've worked with and a lot of tech work before. But Tim and I kept coming to the same question of who the county used the last TIF, and were we satisfied with them? Both yes and no. You want someone pretty bullish on this because our grids attorneys will be just that. So we're going to want to, if it's an extra few $1,000s for a better attorney, probably worth going with. So I'm all ears on that. If you want me to bring 3 proposals your way, do one at a time. I think it's probably best to look at all of them together.
Yeah. I'll go back to your job reentry and those issues with employment. Have you contacted the Central Western Maine Job Development
Yes,
Committee?
They tried to get me to join the board of directors, so
Did you join them?
I met with Ann Benson, the new director, a few weeks ago. She's really good. We're trying to, they're already doing a lot of that work.
Yeah.
And I told the state, I said, I don't have time to run a workforce program. There's whole organizations out there doing just this.
Yeah.
But the state called me and said, I was told to call you and tell you to apply. So if I can bring that money into Somerset, I'm going to try.
Yeah.
But I'm partnering with the workforce board.
Good.
We can look at trying some new things that they might not have funding for. I think we can use their time and staff time as match dollars. And then also Eastern Maine Development Corps, like us, they're huge out of Bangor. They're doing the actual work in Somerset.
Yeah.
Boots on the ground.
They're contracted with
They're
CW.
Right. So yes, I owe her a phone call, but I'm looking to partner with them and the MPC. Try to get to 100,000 in match.
Okay. Well,
So on that same subject, you talked about the pushback that you got. Maybe it's a better conversation offline. I'd like to understand
It was
sort of
more
what
of they're looking for recruitment because the state's saying, look, we need 100,000 workers yesterday, or at least in the not-so-distant future. It's going to be a marketing campaign. You've seen them work effectively sometimes. Most marketing campaigns are just like my on fire. We gave everyone with open employment opportunities here 20 grand. Maybe it'd be effective, maybe it wouldn't, you know. So they seem okay with that. But I said, look, this is our region. This is the biggest issue in our region. I don't want to say we don't have the population. We just don't have the population who wants working. So let's get to the bottom of this. We might actually have funds to do so now. I think you'll get a different answer from most people. But COVID really threw things on its head. I don't know. I agree. I don't know where the workers are.
So it basically just came down to it's really not the problem that you think it is, Christian? Is that kind of the attitude? Was that, the
No, it was-
pushback was more of a,
No, it was just, the legislature formed that fund, and it had certain parameters and language, and I typically try to go outside
access it?
of that.
Yeah, okay.
But they've been good to work with. I think the biggest thing with that was to be finding our match controllers, so we'll see how much in-kind I can utilize, because we're not sitting on a lot of cash.
Okay.
John?
I had a question, just going back to the beginning, what you said, you're saying slow down on this community benefit discussion we're having because we might need some of these funds for,
Potentially. I mean, you know,
something might come along for big bucks for,
that's my only concern with the cap. I get the cap because we've seen six-figure requests come in every year, right? I think they're probably coming in
Okay.
pretty soon. And we all say, look, it's a worthy cause, but man, I swear we just cut you the check, you know, for your last groomer. And it's historically been an effort, the county has been one support. And so if we cap ourselves, you know.
but I'm just sort of, again, it's sort of dichotomy between community benefit and TIF. So a lot of your groomers are in the TIF country. And I know we spend a ton of this money on snowmobile clubs and ATVs and,
I just think from my conversation with Christian, his concern is if we were to be able to be successful for a federal grant for $1 million or $2 million dedicated for trail development over the years, we would need to come up with a match.
right.
And if that was a 10% match, $200,000, where would that come from? And so I think it's worth keeping that in the back of your mind when you're developing these TIF.
Understood, but I just want to make sure that, I mean, it seems to me that if the likelihood is that this kind of money is going to be for the TIF, the UT, then it's not going to create a problem for community benefit, because there's plenty of money in both accounts.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the trail system runs through both, right?
You know, the club that he's
Yeah.
thinking of is in a plantation. So it wouldn't be TIF funds, we could partially fund the TIF, but primarily it would be community benefit funds.
So I guess my just broader, I mean, I like to think that, and maybe I'm just missing the point here, but it just seems to me that the community benefit is not, the snowmobile clubs don't have any special preference when it comes to accessing those funds.
They won't care where it comes from, no.
Yeah. They don't care where it comes from, but I don't think we're reserving community benefit funds for the benefit of the snowmobile clubs. Any more than we are reserving it for the benefit of food covered in East Overshoot.
Yeah, I only mention that because, one, there's huge potential opportunity, but more often than not, a large request has come from those types of clubs.
Yeah.
You know, and then everything else is, everything in between, you
Got
know,
it.
pantries or for-profit businesses or what. But, you know, for 6 years now, I've seen our largest request by far was snowmobile groomers and trail maintenance.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing about that is we can also, what we've been discussing for the community grant has been mostly people coming to us looking for some funds, but if there's a federal grant that comes in that needs help and we can supplement that, we can reverse that and perhaps have the language such that we would be able to put more in towards that. Rather than, we can cap one way and have an open door the other.
Agreed.
So, but we just have to have the proper language for that, and I'm sure Chris and Tim can work that
Deal with
out.
this in the proper part of the meeting, I think, is probably what I'm guessing, because we're spending a lot of time here that we don't need to spend because we can't do anything about it right now.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, good enough.
Dave?
I want to update you on a couple things from last meeting, regular meeting versus special. The boiler problem, furnace problem in the Rockland Fire Station, I've got a quote back from our current maintenance company, Somerset and Jackman, and the quote they gave to replace the burner is $4,195. Much below what I was anticipating, and at that amount, I would like to be able to award the project to them so they can take care of it. Later in this, we were going to go out to an RFP, but I don't think it's necessary in this case. Bridge problems,
Can I just ask you a quick one on that one?
yes.
So you said to replace the burner, is it to replace just a portion of the system, or is it?
From my understanding, I looked at the RFP, apparently the boiler system is okay, it's just the burner
Okay.
that is shot out. I originally was told it was a boiler, and then when I looked at the cost of 10 years ago when we bought what was there, it was $10,000 or more.
Mm-hmm.
So I was expecting a much higher price, but Hall & Smith sent us a quote, and it's just the furnace part that needs to be replaced.
Just the burner?
Yeah.
Just the burner.
Yeah, so the number is much less, we can deal with that without a problem.
So are they the only ones that gave you any information on?
They're the ones that are currently maintaining it for us. It was installed 10 years ago by A.E. Robinson, who has offices in Greenville, Foxcroft, Dexter. They're not inside our county. We swapped over to Hall & Smith because they were a Somerset business.
Right.
And the prices were pretty comparable, a little bit Hall & Smith's favor. So we've done very well working with them before. We still do a little business with A.E. Robinson. They fill up one of our little propane cylinders in the pump house for the community building. So, small amounts.
So they're basically the only one that looked at the boiler, and they're the only one that gave us a price on that.
Yeah. Yeah, since they were the maintenance ones, they discovered it wasn't working and they gave us a quote. Bridge problems I told you about, but I haven't heard anything from Brian Lewis yet. I sent another email today to see if he has a quote to give us estimates what I'm looking at from him. The Lake Moxie Road in Moxie Gore Township, we have no contract with anybody to plow that road this winter. We've gone through a whole bunch of hoops and we haven't had any luck. So I'm meeting with Kyle Hall from Maine DOT and Liz Caruso from Caratump, and we're going to try to negotiate some kind of an agreement. It doesn't look like DOT is willing to take it over, but they are giving us the possibility of cure. So at the next meeting, I can update you more on that, but that meeting's happening tomorrow, so hopefully we'll have some good news. Lawsuit with Kingsbury Plantation. Their lawyer has come up with a couple options to resolve this, except they're truly meaningless. They're willing to give us something that may never happen. The agreement is 3 people own the salt shed in the land. If one person leaves, it goes over the other 2 entities. If another person leaves, the last entity gets everything. But if the last entity decides to sell the lot, then each member gets a third of the sale price. Well, I don't foresee anybody selling this lot. I don't think that's going to happen. And the only thing Kingsbury was offering was to not claim their 1/3 share. Something that may never happen, and they had no intention, or have not stated any intention, of paying for their share of the salt shed, like they're obligated to. So basically, I've told our lawyer to move to arbitration. And that's in the agreement we have, that's our next step. So they're just wasting time and money with these offers they've made. So that's where we stand now.
Any questions for Dave? Anything further? Okay. Let's see, no unfinished business. New business, Resolution 23-180 to approve updates to the Somerset County purchasing policy. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Okay, it's a go. Resolution 23-181 to accept the notice of retirement of Sergeant Darlena Bugby from the Somerset County Jail and recognize her 34 years of service to the county. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Thank you, Darlena, for your 34 years. Appreciate it very much. Any other discussion? All in favor? There you go. Resolution 23-182 to accept the resignation of Logan Roberts from the Somerset County Sheriff's Office.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Okay. Resolution 23-183 to authorize the hiring of a full-time patrol deputy.
So moved.
Second. Discussion?
Is there
I'll get
one that is
To replace Deputy Roberts.
And you have somebody in the pipeline?
no applicants yet for that, or we?
Further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Resolution 23-184 to accept the resignation of Erica Rowe as Register of Deeds.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? One opposed. Resolution 23-185 to authorize the contract of rubbish removal from Somerset, with Somerset Disposal.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Good. Capital Reserve Expenditures, Resolution 23-186 to authorize an agreement with Systems Engineering to install a new tape drive system.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Can we have a little bit more about what that?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do we know anything about the tape drive system?
I think Pavel can
Pavel.
explain it.
So this is basically to store the backups to the tape drives that we store off-site. So the current system, we barely can keep up with the existing backups, and with the amount of storage that we need, that new system is needed to basically keep all the backups off-site.
What's the difference in size?
So the existing one on each tape, we can store 2.5 terabytes, for example, and on the new one will be 18 terabytes. So it's like
Get that, Sheriff?
18 on each tape, so it's like a significant increase.
What's the money part of this?
It's big.
Should be in your packet.
Yeah, so
It's big.
the hardware is,
30,000.
yeah, total project is like $30,000.
And I will add that Pavel and I discussed this, and so part of that is about $6,000 worth of labor and about $23,000 worth of equipment. And what Pavel did is he took what Systems Engineering recommended for equipment, and he shopped it and made sure he had the best price on each piece of equipment.
Yeah, so I have that three quotes for the hardware.
And I'm assuming all the information that we have to store is by statute. We're required to do this.
Thanks to the
Federal or state?
the state legislature.
Gotcha.
I'm ready to vote.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Unorganized Territory. Resolution 23-187 to turn over ownership of the 2015 Yamaha SR Viper snowmobile recovered from the bottom of Moosehead Lake to Brian Scott of Moosehead Sled Repair and Rental in lieu of paying $1,154.77 invoice for repairs on the snowmobile.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
That's a pretty big sled, 16 quarts of oil.
I suspect they have a flush out with that.
I'm thinking. I saw that.
So we've already spent some money on this snowmobile.
Yeah, we have.
Kind of bought it from the,
Spent about $8,000 on it?
okay, well, good riddance.
Money pit.
So,
I'll do that again.
Yeah, I would hope not.
all in favor of, any more discussion? All in favor? Where's it go?
You were thinking on that one.
Thank you, Brian Scott, for taking that off our hands. Resolution 23-188 to authorize an RFP to replace the boiler at the Rockwood Fire Department. Discussion. So this is no longer a full replacement, but just the firebox.
Yeah, I mean,
Burner.
we could just bypass
The burner,
this
yeah.
and vote it down.
Can we make a separate motion just to authorize the expenditure of 4,000,
Yeah.
whatever it was?
After we have a second on the first one.
1,195.
You can just make amendment to it.
So I can amend it?
Yeah, make an amendment. A friendly amendment, we can do that right here.
Has it been
Do
seconded?
we have a first and a second?
You had it first, do we have a second?
I didn't hear a second, so.
So I'll second it. And then I'll make a motion to amend it,
Yeah,
to authorize the expenditure of, fill in the blank, please,
4,195.
what he said, for a replacement
Burner.
burner,
Yes.
without further ado.
All right. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
So we're going to vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amended amount? Now we get to vote on the full resolution to authorize an RFP, but we've already paid for it, with the amount of $4,195 to replace the burner at the Rockwood Fire Department.
Quick question.
Yep.
So in this situation where we're actually naming the dollar amount here, if they're replacing that and they run into a issue that they weren't anticipating, how does that end up working? Do they stop work at that point in time, come back to make sure that,
They will probably call, they'll contact us and get approval. A lot of the projects that we award have estimated prices. We do a road construction. Very often, there's more material required than we expected.
right,
So they will put it in and they'll bill us for the difference. If it's major, they let us know if they run into a problem. If it's just normal overages, then they just send it through. In this case, they gave us the details, the parts, the labor. I expect them to come in at this price, and if something does show up that's unexpected, they'll let us know before they proceed.
and did they also inform you of a warranty?
I haven't checked on that. I just got it today, right before the meeting.
Okay,
But I can double check on that.
that would be good. Good, Will?
Well, all set? No more further discussion or amendments? All set? All in favor? All right, very good. The warrants, Resolution 23-189 to approve the treasurer's warrant for general fund, Somerset County Jail, and unorganized territory for a total of $439,489.91.
So,
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay. And then we have Resolution 23-190 to approve of the,
the motion to hire, the hiring of the domestic violence investigator in the DA's office.
all right, so you
Make that
you
motion.
make that motion.
Second?
Discussion? Yes.
Did a little research on this, need some questions answered, but I know this is, I'm assuming, state pays this position, or no?
Is the state or is the county?
Okay.
County position, okay.
So in lieu of that, and also getting some information, and somebody can clarify this, that the individual that was there in that position had a hard time staying busy. I'm wondering if it would benefit us, if we can do it, to, as we're hiring another detective for Somerset County in January, as promised by the Budget Committee and the rest of us, if that role can be taken over by a detective of the county to eliminate that cost.
I'm just gonna say that the last one that left was not busy by her own choice. We gave her job after job after job, those jobs did not get done. That's just not here anymore.
And that's what I'm looking to hear about, because I
That-
just got that information and wanted to
Yeah.
clarify.
No, it wasn't clarified. ADA Snyder, and to be honest with you, there's a couple of cases that we've just recently had to not go forward with because we didn't have an investigator to go out and do them. So we really do need somebody to go out and look at these cases. We can call the sheriff's office and they're all out working, and we can call Maine State Police and they're all out working. And if we had our own person, we could send him or her out.
I have a question. So this person is, and I'm looking at both the sheriff and you, Natalie. This is a person that's really working for the sheriff's office, designated as your investigator. He's under the aegis of Somerset County law enforcement. Am I right on this?
So the DB, I think that is in statute, that's, don't hold me to that, but I think it's a private, it's a separate entity within law enforcement that isn't connected to the sheriff's office. It's actually connected to the district attorney's office.
But this person has law enforcement authority, can make
Yes.
arrests and
Yes.
carries a weapon. And
Yeah.
all that's,
Yeah, they have to at least be, well, they really have to be an academy graduate, because if you're at what is called a green pin, a reserve officer, you can only work 1,040 hours a year.
but this person doesn't report to you.
No, reports to the assistant, well, or would report to Frank, and who ultimately reports to me.
Because back in the day, I mean, there used to be a designated state police person there that did sex abuse
Yeah,
cases.
So way back in the 80s.
Wasn't that long ago.
Well, I remember how it came about. And it was actually a child abuse investigator.
Yeah.
That each county received a child abuse investigator. And my predecessor was actually one of those investigators. That sort of dwindled out and morphed into, though it, I don't know, sometimes city by state, it morphed into I guess the enhancement of or the complications of a domestic violence investigation, the DA's and the follow-up. So the follow-up is the big thing with, is that person breaking?
That seems to be about 90% of the job, is
Yeah.
checking on bail.
Yes, that's what we want,
Right.
to do bail checks.
I guess I just personally would express the view that I'd be more comfortable if this person was sort of answerable to, I mean, just thrown in. I mean, it makes more sense to me that this would be just like our court officers, they work for you, they're reimbursed by the state. I mean, I feel that there should be
Is
some.
there an MOU or something that we sign back and forth that the person kind of falls sort of under your umbrella as far as training and?
Yeah, we do, so our training is from Jericho, and you have to be qualified, so we do qualify the investigator. Megan and I have actually had real 33,000 feet high discussions, but there has been no discussion in earnest about changing what that model is.
It
Just seems more prudent to,
it has been brought up, we just haven't had time
Yeah.
to sit down and have that discussion with the sheriff. When by we, I mean Megan and Frank and the sheriff. And there has been discussions, we've talked to Tim and Leanne about it.
okay. Well, as long as that's happening, I'm comfortable with it, but I do think it's something that we should look into.
What's the average caseload of that individual?
It depends on how motivated they are. When Mike Pike was there, he had constant arrests. Carolyn had no arrests in 18 months. And it just is, you can't compare apples to oranges, you know.
Right.
So, it is a busy position, and we do send them out a lot.
And you'd agree with me, Natalie, that they don't do a lot of investigation of
No.
the facts of the domestic violence. They spend most of their time making sure that the defendant is adhering to the conditions of his bail, which is often very challenging because the victim wants him back in the home and he wants to get back in there and get his ice fishing traps or whatever, and it goes on and on and on.
The one that recently came to mind that we didn't have somebody is, so we got a call to actually investigate a domestic, sexual assault situation. And we referred those out to law enforcement. We referred them to either the sheriff's office or to the Maine State Police. Maine State Police said that they were tied up with 4 homicides, so they didn't have time to send somebody out to look at that. And then the detectives at the sheriff's office also have a big amount of cases. And so to give it the credit and the time that it needed, nobody had time to do that. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. And if we had Carolyn still there, we would have sent her out. Okay, not a good time. But we just need a person that we can send out to look at that. And they don't necessarily charge it. It's just they go out and investigate it and say, maybe does need a bigger law enforcement agency like the sheriff's detective.
And how does this person's salary compare with your average detective or patrol officer in the sheriff's office?
I don't know. I would have to research it. I don't know what pay scale they're on.
Well, that was the problem. That was another one of our situations. The reason we didn't fill it immediately when Carolyn left is because we need to be able to advertise at a little bit higher price than what we were paying so that we can get somebody that can do the job.
So what are we paying now?
We were paying Carolyn $29. We're hoping to pay someone somewhere between 36 and 40 to keep them employed and to be able to do the job that they're required to do.
Does that translate to an annual salary, or is it just by the hour? Do we know?
Times it by 2,080.
By the hour.
Right.
But are you asking if they're salaried?
I just want to know what the annual salary of this position is. Is that
80 grand.
I mean,
80
yeah.
grand?
Roughly 80.
Okay.
I mean, the terms of employment is a 40-hour work week.
Right.
It's not
Well,
like
It
a
is
per
40,
diem.
yeah. No,
Right,
it's a 40
right, they're
hour.
required to do 40, right, so,
right, 40.
okay.
So we're hiring a person for $80,000 to fill this position, more or
Plus.
less? Plus benefits?
Plus,
Okay,
plus,
that's what I wanted. Thank you.
100 plus. Okay, certainly not doubting anything that you said, Natalie, please don't take it that way. It sounds like because of the documented cases and the results, they're basically, and I'm not looking to actually see them, but there's basically a paper trail to show that somebody's either performing or not performing.
It sure is.
Okay, so,
We can provide that to you if you'd like it.
I'm sorry?
We can provide that to you if you'd like it.
No, I totally believe you, I just,
Yeah, no.
Okay.
There is, we do. Keep track of it.
okay,
We use a system called JustWare, and you can run every officer in Somerset County, and you can see how many arrests and
okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All ready to vote? All in favor? Any opposed? Let's go. Miscellaneous discussion items, commissioners only? Scott, Joel? Everybody good? Everybody's good? All right. And we have an executive session, Title I, Section 4056A, Personal Jail. I have a motion for an executive session.
I move we move to executive session. Question.
Is there a second? Second. Moved in second, we are in executive session.
We did that?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Robert's closer.